Hello and welcome to episode 29 of What Makes This Song Special. As always, I'll be talking about a song that reminds me of a certain moment in my life. You can tell me why it's special to you if it is in the comments section. We'll then talk a little bit about the singer and a little bit about the song. That's the format of the show every week. Things are getting quite cold in Scotland. I've got my little tea cosy on today. It's getting cold out there, getting wintry. And it was a winter story. Ooh, a little segue into the story. I didn't even mean that, but we'll go with it. It was a winter. I'm sure the timing of this one's a wee bit vague, but I think it was early, maybe January 1990. We were on one of my family's famous road trips, many road trips from Scotland to Italy and back. And we were in an amazing little idyllic town in the Rhine Valley in Germany called Mermut. Little sort of hamlet. Does the word hamlet only apply if it's English? I don't know. It's an English town. I feel like it's got strong English countryside connotations. I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, I think a settlement that's smaller than a village. I think that would be what I could describe a hamlet as. Yeah, a settlement that's smaller than a village. So that would sum up Mermut. Mermut was probably had a population of maybe less than 200 people at the time, and I don't think it's got many more than that today. Still a very small place. Now I'm going to keep today's episode quite short. Last week's was quite a long one, so I thought we'll make it quite a short one this week. Short and sweet. I could go into a really cool story about how we ended up in Mermut and how we found a little hamlet in Germany in the Rhine Valley of less than 200 people. And that's a story that I'll keep for another episode, because there is another episode that is a wee bit more relevant to Mermut and how we found Mermut, so we'll talk about that another time. But, anyway, it was a long time before mobile phones, and as we were always sort of gallivanting around the world when I was younger with my mum and dad and my brothers, we would often go to payphones to call home, to let my grandparents know that we were alive and well. And there was a phone box in front of this tiny little church in the village, right in the middle of the village. My mum was in there speaking to my gran back in Scotland. And my youngest brother, Luciano, who was only he must have been about 2 years old at the time, 2 or 3. He walked in to see her, and when he was in the phone box, he touched something. There was like an ashtray in the phone box, back when you could smoke, back when there were phone boxes, but back when you could smoke in a phone box. And there was an ashtray, and he touched something in the ashtray, but it didn't look like cigarette ash, it looked slightly different. And then he touched his mouth, and he had some sort of reaction to whatever he touched, and his lips swelled up, and his face kind of swelled up. And of course we got a huge fright, and we ended up rushing to the nearest kind of hospital, which is actually, because we were in the middle of nowhere, the nearest hospital was in a much bigger town called Koblenz. Koblenz is maybe about 20 or 25 minute drive away from where we were. So got in the car and we drove quickly to Koblenz. I remember sitting in the back of the car with my brothers, and just feeling sick, being so worried about my wee toddler brother at the time. We got him to the hospital in Koblenz, and we were seen straight away. Of course, we were seen straight away. It was Germany. Germany's health service, even then, was just on a different level to what most other countries have. An incredible hospital and just incredible facility in general. But anyway, they weren't sure what the reaction was to, and they seemed a little concerned, which of course concerned us even more. And they wanted to do lots of tests to make sure that it wasn't something poisonous or something, really potentially very dangerous for him. So at one point they came back to us and they took a guess. They said that they thought it might have been a reaction to sulphur that would have been inside gunpowder. So that makes me think that I'm right about the just after New Year timeline, but not that really matters. But anyway, they thought that maybe somebody had been using fireworks for New Year celebrations, and I don't know how gunpowder got into the phone box, but maybe somebody's lit something, or I don't know. Anyway, they wanted to keep Luciano, my youngest brother, in all night for, surveillance to keep an eye on him. And I remember they gave him this amazing room with a TV, a bed for my mum to sleep in the same room. He got a meal, he got ice cream. By this point, me and my other brother Dario we were getting jealous. We were like, my God, this is incredible. So it was like, honestly, like a hotel room, which again, 1990, that was already the way hospitals were in Germany. Just incredible. So we then got the bad news that we were, not allowed to stay in the room. It was just my mum that was allowed to stay in with Luciano, and that me and Dario would have to go with my dad and be destined for a night of sleeping inside the car in the hospital car park. So it was a really cold, dark night, and we left the hospital room and I remember we drove around for a while. We were trying to find something to eat, somewhere to get something to eat. And we ended up finding a pizza takeaway place. And I remember my dad speaking to the guys in the place in Italian. And I don't know, looking back, I don't know why we got pizza, because we were always the type of family who embraced the local culture and local foods. And we always enjoyed eating German food when we were in Germany. But for some reason, we got pizza. And also very strange, because my dad's, in true Italian fashion, a typical Italian who is always disappointed by Italian food anywhere outside of Italy. Just moan about how it's not as good as it is back home and all this stuff, as I now do as well, because I've just turned into him in that from that regards. But so yeah, we got this huge. I remember it was like the biggest pizza I'd ever seen. It was this humongous pizza box, and we took it back to the car, and we sat in the car eating pizza, worrying about Luciano, and turning on the ignition every 10 minutes to heat up the engine so we could put the fan on and get some warm air into the car. And I couldn't get comfortable, and I couldn't sleep. And I remember asking my dad to turn on the radio to see if there was some music in the background that might help us sleep. And he put the radio on just a low volume in the background. And I remember there was lots of German speaking and German songs that I couldn't understand a word of. And then this song came on. And it was, of course, Sinead O'Connor singing Nothing Compares to You. And I remember falling in love with it immediately. I remember just loving the melody, and just, even at that age, I'd have been about, 8 years old or something, but I was just blown away by the song, the melody, it just seemed to, it was the perfect song to hear in that moment. And that's the last thing I remember before waking up, so it must have been like my lullaby that night, because I just woke up the next morning and feeling quite refreshed after a sleep in the car all night. And we went back up to the hospital, and my wee bro was fine. It was all good. He was free to go home, or certainly back to our, temporary home of Mermut, for the foreseeable at the time. And there's my wee story. That's when I was the first time. Not the most exciting story this week. I know sometimes I have some funny stories or some sad stories, or this is just a little kind of, it's not really that exciting a story, but it's what I think about when I hear the song Nothing Compares to You. It's what I'm taken back to, and it's where I first heard the song. As I've written in the description of these episodes, I have got this weird ability to just hear a song and then know exactly where I was the first time I heard it. I sometimes can remember vividly what I was wearing, what is just a kind of strange part of my brain that is accessed when I hear. I don't know if anybody else feels that. Please leave a comment if you've also got that strange sort of superpower. I don't know, it's a weird superpower that I've got, but I can always remember where I was the first time I heard a song. And especially if it's a really important song, I can tell you lots of things about, what was important about that day or that week or that time in my life. So that's where I was the first time I heard Nothing Compares to You. It reminds me of that night sleeping in the car, worrying about my little brother and hoping that he was going to be okay in our adventures in Germany. What makes the song special to you? Leave a wee comment. We'll talk a wee bit about the song very quickly. Originally written by Prince, and released in 1995 on a side project of his. It never really became famous until it was released by Irish singer Sinead O'Connor. who turned it into a worldwide hit. Actually, in fact, it became a #1 best-selling song of 1990 worldwide. It's pretty impressive. I'll take some of my coffee. Wonderful coffee. How good's coffee? It's just the greatest. Where were we? Big hit. Lyrically, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it's a song about someone who's broken up with their partner in a relationship. They're talking about how the freedoms of becoming single can't compare with how great what they had together was. Essentially, that's what the song's about. Sinead O'Connor connects incredibly well emotionally with this song. I mean, I was in here yesterday with a student and we were singing another song. She was singing like a Bruno Mars song, but one of the things we were talking about, and I talk about it a lot, I've mentioned it before on the channel, and I think it's important to say again that emotional connection is so important in singing. I mean, it's just obviously being in tune, being in pitch is kind of #1 in terms of attributes needed to be a listenable singer, you know, to have a voice that people might want to listen to. But if you don't connect with a song lyric, the song's dead, you know. It just doesn't have any life. There's no performance, you know. So Sinead O'Connor has bags of emotion in her voice. I mean, she really performs the song and other songs, but especially this one, she just seems to connect with it. And it's the strange thing is, I mean, as I said before, it's not even her song. She didn't write this one. It's Prince's song. He wrote it, and yet she really connects with it. So she gets into that emotion, that the emotion of that lyric, and takes on the persona of, you know, the character in the song, even though it's not her song, which is amazing. It's an amazing ability to have. I think she performs the vocal in this song to perfection. I've seen her do it live as well before, and she really, I mean, it's emotional, great. She has a great ability to jump between chest and head voice too. So she's able to, you know, like in the last chorus where she does the kind of nothing, you know, that wee the wee jump, whatever it is. You can't remember whereabouts it is. Is it nothing compares? Whatever it is, you'll hear me doing it in part 2 if you click. But it's like a real like the lovely wee chest transition through the gears, which is, you know, it's a great thing to have as a singer. It's a great wee tool to have. I encourage it with a lot of my singing students. We do these exercises where we go la 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 la, and we jump between chest and head voice. They're really great for getting you moving between those gears. And as I said, really handy for many songs. Lots of Elton John songs require those jumps, and lots of Queen songs, lots of Coldplay songs, lots of songs in general. Jumping between chest and head's a great little technique to have. She has a slight frogginess in her sound, which is really kind of it kind of gives her own character. It kind of comes from having quite a high larynx position, usually that type of sound. So I think she's probably got quite a high larynx position. But then she counters that by sort of opening up into a really wide sort of vertical embouchure. Embouchure is a fancy French word for mouth position. That makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I won't bore the non-singers with any more vocal geekery. But if you want to know more about vocals or need help with your singing, get in touch. We can organise a Zoom lesson, a Skype lesson, a video lesson of some sort from wherever you may be in the world. And as always, thank you so much for listening. And I will see you next week for another song. And click here somewhere to hear my cover version of today's song. Thank you so much.